I am a teacher, but I was once a student. But the student becomes the teacher. Because what's the point of all this experience if you can't pass it on? Seriously, what would I do if I had all this knowledge and I didn't share it? What's going on, everybody? Chris Naugle back with the Money School podcast. And today, this podcast is going to be extra special. This is the 300th podcast I've done. It's hard to look back and realize that there's been this many, but yes, this is number 300. So not only did I write all of this down so that I got it right, I am literally going to give you tremendous value that literally can change your life. And I know that sounds cliche, but you know what? If somebody had given me what I'm about to unleash when I was a young man, I would have got where I'm at now much faster with a lot less headaches and a lot less struggles. So let's just dive right into the wisdom shortcut. For those of you that know me, you know I'm not one to sit on the sidelines, never have been. From the time when I was a competitive snowboarder right up till now, I always believed in being first. First on the course, first to try the new trick on the snowboard or skateboard, first to push the limits, first to raise my hand and be the reckless one who hits the jump before anybody else. And why did I do that? Sometimes I think it's the thrill. Sometimes it was just who I was. And sometimes it was because nobody else would do it. But I can tell you, it wasn't about being reckless. It was really about finding the edge. I was experimenting just like so many of you are and so many of you do. I was testing the landscape. I was redefining what I thought when I was younger was impossible, but I was redefining it into the possible. And that same drive that I applied to skateboarding and BMX and snowboarding, that same drive is what led me to real estate. It's what led me to finance. It's what led me to coaching. First, it was coaching a snowboard team, which we'll get into, and then leading and training and coaching teams in what I do today in the money game, the truth about money and how money really works. And here's what I've learned. I've learned that over and over again, that success isn't about talent. It's not even about hard work, although that is an important aspect. There's a truth to the fact that you have to work hard to be successful, but mostly success is about wisdom. And you're going to find wisdom one way or the other. You're either going to find it the way I did, which is just fail your way to learn. Fail your way into wisdom, because wisdom is not something you can buy. It's not something you can be taught. It's something you kind of have to experience or something you have to be mentored into. I mean, there's so many examples of that. The kind of wisdom that comes from failure, from pushing too hard, let me be clear about that, and the kind of wisdom that comes from missing the landing. That's where this journey is going to begin. It's going to begin with what I call the mammoth crash. So I'm going to deem this as the cost of emotion over due diligence. You see, there was a point when I was a pro snowboarder where I was really starting to get noticed. I had lots of great sponsors. I was being paid decently. I was being invited to Red Bull contests that people would just dream of being invited to. I got invited to the Molson Canadian Snow Jam Tour, for crying out loud. There was only like 12 riders ever that were invited to ride in that series, and I was one of them. This was a pivotal point in my career. I got invited to go out to Mammoth, California, Mammoth Mountain, with a brand new sponsor, 32 Boots, and we were going to film. I was with some just unbelievable riders, some guys that I saw in videos, guys I saw in magazines who just crushed it. And I was kind of the new guy on the team. At this time, I was right around 34 years old. I was trying to pinpoint how old I was. It was either 33 or 34. And it was probably March of that season. And I was out there to prove a point. I was out there to make my mark. And we woke up that morning. It was a bluebird day. Now, if you know anything about snowboarding, a bluebird day is the most iconic day. And you know what? Not even just in snowboarding, in everyone's life, a bluebird day is one of those days you wake up, you walk outside, the birds are chirping, you look up into the sky, and all you see is the sun and just blue. There are no clouds. This day out at Mammoth when we woke up was a quintessential bluebird day. It was when we woke up in the 30-degree range, but during the day it was supposed to get into the 40s, which means if you're a snowboarder, no jacket. That's right. Just hoodies in good times. So we rolled out, and of course, with the crew I was with, we headed right to the park. And in the park, and I'd taken some runs the prior day, and I'm no stranger to a park. You know, there was multiple jumps and then rails, but we lined up right in front of the jump line. So I just want you to envision I'm standing there with this group of riders, and I'm just staring down at the face of this jump. It looked perfect. I mean, just picture perfect. It was literally like a sculpture. The takeoff was probably 20 feet off the deck. I couldn't see the landing, but I guessed maybe 40 feet to the knuckle, which is kind of the minimum amount of distance you can go. And then it just looked like that landing was endless. I mean, we were in Mammoth. And as we're standing there, you know, everybody's kind of getting their everything ready. You know, it was early in the morning, so I do want to preface, it was still early, which means the snow was still really firm. Because in Mammoth, no matter how warm it is the night before, at night it freezes. So you kind of got this granular snow, which is just ripping. You're just flying. And I kind of forgot about that. I was just so excited, so in the moment, so just caught up in this sculpture that we were about to hit and embark on. So the filmers got in position. Even though this was our first jump, like, didn't matter. You know, when you're a pro snowboarder, you just show up and you just roll up. And, you know, I don't remember how it happened. It wasn't like a game of Rochambeau, but there was a moment where we had to decide who's going to go first. So I volunteered. I'll go first. Here's the funny thing. I remember everything. I remember the dragon goggles I had on. I remember the blue plaid button-up shirt that I had on. I remember the board I was on. It was a brand new forum because I just got on the forum team. And I was wearing some brand spanking new 32 boots because while we were there, we were testing out next year's product. The energy was high. The cameras are rolling and I'm ready to go. But you see, I made a mistake that even today I'll never forget. You see, I let emotion take over. I let excitement and confidence take over. I was beyond confident. Now, remember I mentioned, like, we just rolled up to the jump. We didn't check the landing out. We didn't check anything out. We just made assumptions. Remember that word. I made an assumption. I didn't dial in anything. I just lined up. I made an assumption about how fast I had to go. And I remember when I dropped, the face was deceiving because it was a big, long takeoff for this jump, which big, long takeoffs, you got to go faster at those because even though the jump might not be huge, 40 feet wasn't a huge jump, you still needed to carry good speed off of the takeoff to make it to the landing. And the worst thing that I thought in my mind would be come up short. Gosh, I don't want to come up short. That's like falling 20 feet and just smashing into the deck. No, no, no. So when I did that, I took just one very minor speed check. Now, remember how fast I said it was this morning. Going up to the jump, getting ready, I was just going to throw my normal stock trick. I could throw this trick on every jump. I could stick it every single time. It was a back 540 corked out, which means you're a little off axis. I had it locked and dialed. And I remember going up the face of the jump on my toe edge, and right at the lip, I gave it a big pop, and I threw it into that cork. So I'm flying through the air. I felt perfect. You got the grab. I'm off axis. The board is spinning. And as I'm spinning, I got a little more than 180 and I watched the landing go by. No big deal. I mean, this is a long landing. But then when I got to 360, I realized how high I was. At that very point, I realized I wasn't going to catch the landing. I was going to land completely flat. I was going to overshoot the entire landing because, well, I didn't check the landing. And because this was the first jump in a 3-jump line, the landing on this one was a little shorter than I had expected. It didn't have that long rollout like the other 2 bigger jumps did. This one was kind of just a short, stubby landing, and you kind of had to nail it. And I wasn't going to nail it. I was going to overshoot it. And I remember I just braced for impact, kind of like, if you could just envision slowing time down, you just brace. I'd crashed many times. I knew exactly how to do this. But when I hit the ground, that I was not ready for. Because when I hit the ground, I broke. But it wasn't just a little. Broke my tailbone, tore the muscle off my bicep, bruised my lower back, and because I broke my tailbone, my butt that night turned to a black, nice, beautiful shade, and that was a bruise. I did something to my ankle and my heel that I don't know how to describe. Nonetheless, what I'm trying to tell you is that my body broke, but more than that, my mindset also broke, but I didn't know that. You see, I tried riding the rest of the day broken. It hurt something fierce. Couldn't hit jumps, couldn't hit rails. It was useless. I wasn't going to get any footage. And it came to grips at about noon, and I went in. And I just sat there in just the most utter pain. Thought about going to the hospital, but I'm a tough guy. I should just stick it out. But here's something that I got to explain. It wasn't that crash that broke me. There was something else that happened. Now, remember I said I was 34. For a pro snowboarder, 34 is pretty old. I mean, you're kind of getting to the point where you're competing against 19, 20, 21-year-olds that literally just physically just have one up on you. I was the old guy. I was the veteran, but I was still holding my own until this. The rest of that season, I was trying to film a video part. We were making a whole video and I had my own part in it. I just couldn't get my tricks down. I had this fear in me, and the fear was largely because every time I'd fall, like even if I just tapped my butt on the ground, because you just didn't stick the landing perfectly, it shot shrilling pain through my entire body. I did film that video part, and I was riding in a brand new snowboard competition series, and it was a really big one. And I couldn't even make finals, folks. Like when I showed up to a contest prior to that crash in Mammoth, dude, I didn't have to think about making finals. I knew I was in finals. I just had to figure out, how do I win? How do I come in first? Finals? Pfft, I got this. I was a really good competitive rider, and I'm not being arrogant. I had my tricks on lock. I could make finals. But this season, after that crash, I never made finals. Not once. And I tried. And I went through tremendous amounts of pain. I went through acupuncture, taped myself up, always had Motrin, just did everything I could do. Rehab, trying to get my body back. But what I didn't realize is it wasn't my body. Something broke in my mind. And it will for everybody. There comes a time where you're the best, and then that time fades. And you know what's interesting about that? As I look back on that, I was one of the best riders around, especially in my area. Like I was definitely one of the top 3 riders here. There's only one other rider that could even remotely beat me. And I'm not saying that just to say that. And I had relationships, I had sponsors, I was known in the industry. But as 1 year and 2 year and 3 year went back, and that's going to take us to the new path, the next section of this story, people start to forget about you. Very quickly, you lose your sponsors. Your name vanishes. 5 years goes by. People on the circuit have already cycled. Like nobody knows who you are anymore. You go to X Games or you go to the big competition series, like, 1 or 2 of the old guys, and they're announcing. They're no longer hiding. And then 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Nobody remembers you. Nobody but yourself. You don't show up to the hill anymore and people being like, oh, that's Naugle. You don't show up to the hill anymore at the jump and be like, you're just going to show off and blow everybody's mind and be the first one to hit the jump in the 3 jump line. You're just one of the riders on the hill that nobody knows. So not long after that season that I had that crash, I got offered a coaching position. I'll never forget that call. It came from a friend of mine who knew somebody in the industry. And he said, hey, listen, Chris, I know, you're still riding and you're still, competing. Cause I was still trying to compete, but it wasn't going well. I was so depressed. He said, this resort has this team and they're looking for a national coach. They want a coach that can take the team around all the contests that you used to ride and basically coach them. And at first I outright rejected it. I was not a coach. I was a rider. Oh, come on. I'm not a coach. Never coached anybody. I'm the rider. But eventually, after much thought and selfishness too, I'll explain that in a second, but I gave in. I gave in. You see, this opportunity gave me the ability to be on the hill Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I got to ride all day, evenings, usually on Friday, but I could ride all day Friday, definitely all day Saturday and all day Sunday. But here's the other thing. I got paid again. I would get paid. And all I had to do was teach these kids how to snowboard, not how to snowboard. I wasn't a snowboard instructor. I was a coach. So the only way you got into this coaching program is to be a good snowboarder. So therefore, I just had to make these kids better. And at first I'm like, it's whatever. I'll never even forget that first meeting that I did with the parents of these kids. I was just this, I'm like, I use a pro, I was a pro snowboarder, which was hard to say. And I told them all the things I did, and they were so excited. They got a ex-pro snowboarder coaching their kids. And me, I'm just like, yeah. It's just a little side gig. I'm a financial advisor, and I got this real estate business. Like, this is just what I do on the side. But you see, something unexpected happened. I was reluctant going into this. I thought I'm just going to do this just to get back on the hill, just to reinvigorate myself, just get myself riding again, make a little extra side money on the side because I wasn't crushing it at that present point financially. I fell in love with it. I saw all those kids making the exact same mistakes I had made when I was on my ride up, when I was an amateur, when I wasn't anybody and I was just trying to be somebody in snowboarding. They were making all the same mistakes. The wrong angles, the wrong speed, too many checks, not going fast enough, not keeping their knees bent, the hesitation, the fear that went through their mind, the thinking they just couldn't do it, all of it. I'd been there. But now, instead of just riding, what I was doing is I was sharing the wisdom that I had developed from all those failures, from all those lessons of when I was where these kids were. You see, it was the wisdom of trial and error. I didn't know that then. I really didn't. If you had asked me back then, wouldn't have said it was wisdom. But I went on to coach for 6 years. Myself and one of the guys I used to compete with, I lured him into the coaching because his career was over too, and he was kind of lost, didn't know what to do. His name was Chris as well, and Chris and I are still friends to this day. Chris still designs the Hollymont Park, still an unbelievable rider, awesome skateboarder, and just an amazing human being. So I coached for 6 years with him. And in that time, the team that I was coaching, that I'm going to say we were coaching, me and Chris, the Chris and Chris show, they called it. We won multiple national titles. Now, remember, we weren't like a huge team. We weren't from out west. We're this like tiny little private resort, and we were a relatively small team, and we'd show up to these big contests. Nobody knew us, but I'll tell you what, after the podium ceremony every day, they knew who we were. They knew who the Hollymont team was because we were winning. We were sweeping the platform. We were sweeping the podium. We had athletes taking first and second and third. And there's me, the ex-pro snowboarder, the reluctant coach, sitting out there in the crowd with the parents, watching these kids who I had been coaching get their medals and feeling the most amazing joy. It was almost like I was up there getting the medal, but it was so much better. See, I'd gotten lots of medals. I've stood on many podiums. I'd won many contests. I'd felt what that was like. This was heightened because this was me passing my wisdom to them and watching how they were reliving it. There was something so special about those days. You know, later on, after a couple of our athletes made it into the Olympics. I mean, think about that. You're a coach, and the kids that you coached, you see them on TV in the Olympics. Now, I wasn't at the Olympics coaching it. My coaching career had ended. This was after that 6 years, but those same athletes that I had coached from when they were little kids up to now, they're Olympic athletes. At that point, I realized it wasn't just coaching. It was something I needed. It was something that if I didn't do, I don't know where I would have landed. And it wasn't just teaching techniques, folks. It was passing down the lessons that I'd learned through the failures that I went through. It was literally a wisdom shortcut. I was giving them a shortcut to success. And I truly believe that. And I bet you if we ask those kids today, who I still see up on the hill, they're way bigger. My God, the one is like 6'7". They would say the same thing. But now let me take all of this and let me parallel this into money and investing, because this is where it gets interesting. You see, I didn't know it at the time, but I was laying the foundation for everything that I do today. Because what happens in snowboarding or in athleticism in general, it's the same thing that happens in entrepreneurship. See, as an entrepreneur, you don't have somebody telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. You don't have a time clock you punch in and out of. No, no, no. You just have you. You, your dreams, your vision, and, well, the limitations that you put on yourself. But like I mentioned before, I never really had those limitations. I'm just a dreamer, a visionary, just a kid who thinks he can do just about anything. Because you know what? If you really read the Bible, you can. If you can believe it and you can dream it, you can and will achieve it. So what I'm talking about is specifically what I'll parallel today and what I did in real estate. I don't want to skip past the real estate and go right to the money, because real estate was really an interesting thing. But it wasn't just real estate. It was also in the money business, the advisory business, and what I do today with the infinite banking concepts and being your own bank. And also the experiences I learned through investing in being an investment advisor. And you know what? Here's the parallel. People jump in all the time without checking the landing. Now, I know I'm talking about the landing on the snowboard, but is it any different? People jump into businesses all the time without understanding the business, without knowing anything about it. They just blindly jump in. Well, many of them come up short on the landing and smash the deck. Some of them come in too hot and, well, they overshoot the landing. You see, they move on what I would call FOMO, the fear of missing out. They move on excitement. Totally get that. They move on emotion. They move on confidence. What they don't move on is due diligence. I do a lot of YouTube videos, and you can check my YouTube videos out at the Chris Naugle. I got over 1,000 videos, and I talk a lot about just taking your time. Get to know your surroundings. Check the landing before you leave. Know what you're getting into. What are the failures? How can you fail? How can you get broke off like I did? And how do you not? So don't jump without checking the landing. Because if you do, I'll tell you this, you're going to crash. And crashing, well, it's not fun. It hurts. Hurts your ego. Hurts your body. But most of all, It can break your mindset. And how do I know this? I've made those exact mistakes. My first flips, yep, failed on a lot of those. And I don't care whether you're thinking flips on a snowboard, okay, because I failed on those, or house flips. How about my first rentals? How many mistakes did I make on the first rentals? How about my first development project where I developed ground up? What did I learn there? What did I make a mistake on? What did these things cost me? Time, money, and just every time it chips a little piece of you away. See, I didn't always do my due diligence. I will say on a lot of the businesses I started, I did write business plans, and I spent a lot of time writing them. I spent a lot of time thinking about them. And certainly the businesses I got in, for the most part, I knew, liked, and understood what I was getting into quite well, but not all. And in real estate and investing, the mistakes you make, they don't just bruise your tailbone. They cost thousands and thousands of dollars. They can ruin relationships. They can ruin marriages. They can ruin you. Sometimes it isn't thousands. Sometimes it's millions. Sometimes it's millions and it isn't your money. It's borrowed money. But I will tell you this, with every single failure you'll go through, and you will have them, even if I give you this little shortcut, you will fail. And those failures will help to fortify and develop the wisdom. The wisdom I'm trying to give you now, but you may listen, you may not. It's up to you. Every misstep you take, it's like building the framework. Okay. So don't think of your missteps, your failures as anything other than that. You are literally laying the framework for what you're going to do in the future. Because all of these mistakes, all of those failures, those two stories, and there's many more, they have all built a framework. And that framework is what I teach today. Let's move on to the next section. I call this Why Private Money Club and Infinite Banking Matter. Now, you may not know what either of those are, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Those are just what I do today. Private Money Club it's like a dating site for money that I created. It's a technology platform. It's so much more than just technology, but it just brings people with money together with people that need money so that they each solve each other's problems. How did I learn about that? Well, I'll cover that in a second. And then the infinite banking concept, this little known process that I learned from this guy named Brent. Let me take a step back and we'll get into real estate a little bit more. You see, when I started in real estate, I learned a lot about flipping houses. I learned a lot about wholesale, and I paid a lot of money to learn these things, but I mostly learned by failing, by doing it, by just going out there and getting in the mix of it. And that's great. But it led me to coaching in real estate because I got to a point where I knew a lot and I wanted to share what I knew. And I wanted to share that wisdom. And I wanted to get paid for doing that. So I saw the same problems over and over again. I'd go to RIAs, I'd go to these events, I'd see these people who are just trying to get into the business, trying to get into real estate. And I watched them making the same mistakes. I watched them buying the properties from the wrong source. I watched them not being able to get money for their deal. So therefore their deal was not a deal. It was nothing because they couldn't get it closed. I saw this over and over, and I saw people trying to do it all alone to save a nickel. Well, folks, you stepped over a $10 bill to pick up the nickel. I saw this over and over, and I started telling them, all you need is a coach, a mentor to show you how to do this. You can learn. Well, can't you just, and then I would hear things like, can I just pick your brain? No, no. You see, here's the thing. People trying to do it alone because they want to save a dollar, when what they should be doing is understanding that money should never be the biggest barrier, because it's never about your actual resources. Let me repeat that. It's never about your actual resources. It is always about how resourceful you can be. But money will almost always be the biggest barrier of entry. And again, that barrier is all in your mind. But that's okay. Let's start there. People make costly mistakes, and they make costly mistakes because they don't have the wisdom, because they haven't had the time to develop the wisdom, didn't take the energy to go after their dreams, to fail because they were afraid of failing. So they just took the easy path out, but they missed the learning curve to wisdom. And most importantly, like I said earlier, and like I'm going to tell you again, they weren't learning from those who had already been through the fire. They haven't learned what we know because they haven't failed. They haven't gone through it. They haven't put the time in. And that's definitely one of the reasons I created Private Money Club. So Private Money Club literally started from two places. Early in my real estate career, I could find the deals because I had the time. I had the time and I would find the deals. So I got good at the acquisition. I got good at finding good off-market deals. That's one of the things I coached. But then I would have a hard time finding the money. And a lot of the deals, I'd be really stressed out. Banks wouldn't lend to me, but I couldn't find the money. Then I figured that out slowly. A couple failures, a couple deals that I paid way too much for, but I started to figure it out because I was able to find the money for the deal and I was able to find the deal. But you then, as time goes on, you have less time. You get busier, but you have more money. So all of a sudden there was this switch for me. And this switch came at a point where I wasn't as interested in buying real estate. I wasn't as interested in doing real estate. I was burned out. But I sold a bunch of my real estate and I had accumulated a good amount of money. And now I had money. And now I wanted to do what all those people had done before me. I wanted to lend. Because you know what? The ultimate in real estate is being the bank. No one makes more money in real estate than the bank. Mark my words. On all the deals, 270 some deals that I did, the lender always made money. They did the least amount of work and they just lent it. Made sure their paperwork was in, checked in a few times. I, the flipper, did all the work. And they always got paid handsomely because I would look at the profit and loss and be like, why do these lenders make so much money? So one day on a napkin, I drew a circle. I don't know how this came about. I'm like, there's got to be a way to bring people with money together with people that need money. And I searched and I searched and I searched and I couldn't find anything. I'd find one that I think it was what I was looking for, and it ended up just being a lead source, like where you'd put your information because you wanted private money and then you'd get called by a hard money institutional lender. I'm like, no, I want real private money. People like me. I want individuals like that have their own money, not institutional money. I want people that are lending from their self-directed IRAs, people that are lending from their cash value. I want them. Where are they? But the only way I knew to find them was to go to RIAs, go to events. And you know what? There's only so much time and so much money you can spend on events. So on one side of that circle, I drew a box. I put a dollar sign in it. And I said, on this side, this is like a quarter. This is the heads. And this is people that have money. And then when you flip the quarter and it lands on the other side, that's tails. So I drew another box on the other side of the circle and I drew a dollar sign in that. And I wrote, these are the borrowers. And in the middle, that's the third side of the coin that nobody realizes. Because how many sides of a coin are there? Some of you would say, well, there's heads and tails. But you see, there's a third side, which is the edge. I was going to create the edge. And that was the community. That was the processes and procedures to bring the people with money together with the people that need money. But you see, I didn't have to create this. Dating sites had already done this by bringing men and women together. It's the same thing. So I literally just had to create a dating site for money, which sounds easy, but you know what, when you get into it, holy crap, was it not easy? The regulations, the legal and everything that came around it was tough. It was very tough. But building Private Money Club wasn't easy either. It's been literally a mad scramble for all of us. A mad scramble. Mad scramble shouldn't have been mad scramble. It should have been proactive, structured, and, well, simple. The whole thing was built on trust. So when it comes to money, it's the same thing. Most people don't even realize they're playing a game designed for them to lose. You see, the money game that you play, the money game you've been taught is a game that you lose almost every time. I know. You don't believe me, but it's true. You're not in control of your money. You weren't taught to be in control. You don't know how money works. You don't know how taxes work because nobody's ever taught you. It's not your fault. You take money that you work for by trading your time, which is your single most valuable resource you have because you can never get any of it back. But you value the money so much more than the time that you lost doing it, that is your reward. But then what do you do with that valuable dollars that you've earned? You put it into somebody else's bank. Somebody else's bank does what? Takes your money and makes it go to work for them. They pay you an interest rate on your money. They charge you a higher interest rate to use their money. Is it their money? Well, yes and no. Some would say that's not the bank's money. That's my money. Okay, right you are. Some would say it's not your money because you gave up control of your money when you made a deposit in the bank, and the bank now can do whatever they want. And proof, you do not control the money you put into a traditional bank. Here's the proof. Does the bank have to call you and ask your permission when they want to lend your money out? No. So really, right from the get-go, you're playing a game that is designed to make you lose, that you will lose every single time because you're not in control. The bank is taking your hard-earned money and making it go to work for them at a higher velocity. The bank is making a spread, and a big spread. As a matter of fact, according to BauerFinancial.com, you can go to it yourself, banks make 400 to 1,300% more than you do on the money you leave there. So who is designed to win and who is designed to lose? It doesn't matter who's designed to win because you and the normal world of money are designed to lose. Why is it that you make it, and then you give it back? Stock market. Stock market today was down 800 points. Day before, it was down 1,000. I think it finished almost 900 down, but who's keeping tabs? Game's rigged against you, folks. Always has been, always will be. The banks profit, Wall Street profits, but you, well, sometimes you do, but most of the time you don't. It's a losing game. But you can change that game. You can change the entire game. And it's very simple. It involves changing one thing and adding one step. You can become the bank, and you can take back control of your money by changing one thing and adding one step. See, there's this guy back in the 90s who figured this out. He looked at where all the wealthy people and what they did with money and how the game was definitely rigged against him. And he literally, it was kind of an interesting story. I'm not going to get into it, how this came to be, but basically it came to him when he was down on his knees with his hands together when he was praying to God for answers. And God gave him the answer. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of what happened in that book, Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash, but he found out all I need to do is reclaim control and also reclaim control of the banking functions in my life. No more do I want to give up interest and principal to the banks when I can just pay it back to myself. I indeed can be the bank. I can just do what banks do. I can think as if I am the bank. This concept is known as the infinite banking concepts, and it uses an unconventional vehicle, and it uses it to run your money through, not just deposit your money in and leave it sit. And that vehicle is especially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy. Now, I'm not going to go into how it all works. I've got, like I said, 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel. But the one video I will urge all of you to watch is on my YouTube channel. When you first go there, a video will play. That is the video you watch. It is a 90-minute video. Don't tell me you don't have time, because that 90 minutes will change your financial future forever. And if 90 minutes isn't worth changing your financial future for the rest of your life, putting your family in a better financial place, making sure your kids are in a much better financial place when you're no longer here, well then, I don't even know why you're still on this podcast. This is the shortcut to wisdom, not the long way to failure. Said that wrong. Failure, long way, short way. Doesn't matter. This is not the way to failure. This is the way to success, the way to wisdom, and the way for you to live a better life. This next section is getting kind of toward the end. It's the wisdom shortcut. Learn from those who have been there. At the end of the day, wisdom isn't about intelligence at all. Okay. It's about natural talent. It's not about natural talent either. So it's not about intelligence. It's not about what you learn in school. It's not about natural talent. It's about experience. It's about your life experiences. The fastest way to success, what is it? What's the fastest way to success? I'll tell you what it is. Find someone who's been where you want to go and learn from them. Always has been. That's why people that have mentors, people that have coaches, people that have family members that show them the way, they just seem to get so lucky, don't they? But it's not luck at all. It's not luck. It's the cheat code. Those people don't believe in luck. Luck follows a thing called opportunity because there really is no such thing as luck. Oh, he just got lucky. No, he didn't. Had a good mentor. Had somebody show him the path. Had somebody pass down the wisdom they learned from failing and failing and failing. In snowboarding, I would say it was my mentors. It certainly wasn't from someone who didn't know how to ride down the hill. I mean, I rode with riders that were better than me. That's how I did it. You know, there was never a time when I went on the hill and just rode with my friends because that was what I wanted to do. I found the best riders and I rode with them. I found the experienced riders and I rode with them. I found the old guys who were doing good. I found 2 pro riders that were from my hometown. And I met them at the hill on a weekday. They were filming. And to that day, all it did for me is it showed me it's possible. That's all I needed. It is possible to go pro living in Buffalo, New York. That's all I needed. You can get all the advice you want in the world, but it's not going to matter until you apply that advice, until you apply that wisdom, until you apply that knowledge that they give you. None of it's going to matter. And if you just talk about the things you want to do, if you just talk about your dreams and your visions, it's just not enough. You got to believe in them. You got to believe in yourself. But you got to go out there and do the work. Does that make sense? It should. I'm sure you agree. Now, like I mentioned in real estate, I learned greatly from my failures. I learned greatly from my partners, and I certainly learned from the mentors that I paid. And indeed, in real estate, I did pay those mentors. My first mentor or company that we hired to teach us, me and my wife, we swiped our credit card for over $25,000. I almost got sick. I didn't think I'd be able to pay for it. I thought, we're going to go broke. I'm not going to be able to afford these credit card bills. And then fast forward to kind of where we're at now, my time in finance, time as a financial advisor. I was learning the game from the inside, but I was learning it the wrong way. I was realizing what I was being taught, what I was being shown wasn't the truth. And it rarely is in finance, in the money game. You're not told the truth about money. Even when I was a financial advisor, listening to the consultants, the mentors, if you will call them that, the trainers, they taught you what they knew. And they were taught what they knew from the person before them. And where did all that knowledge start? Probably the company, probably the brokerage. And what are they trying to do? Make the most amount of money. So how is it possible that we ever get off the rat race or get out of the rat race if all we're doing is just regurgitating the information from the top down? See, folks, what I'm trying to explain to you is you got to color outside the lines. You got to start looking outside the lines in the money business and in the money game, because the truth about money is not found coloring inside the lines. It is one of those few industries where coloring outside the lines will have a very positive effect on your finances. Now, the beauty is you don't have to make every mistake yourself. You don't have to take every hard fall like I did. You don't have to overshoot the jump to figure out that you should have done your due diligence and looked at the landing. You don't have to learn the hard way. You can just learn the right way. You can find somebody that will teach you that. You can find somebody that will give you their wisdom. And you know what? In today's world, it's one of the easiest things to do because wisdom's everywhere. The hard part is finding the right wisdom for what you're trying to do. I think that's the hardest part. And also, it's a noisy world out there. How do you find the truth? Well, I always say, if you're looking for the truth, you're looking in the wrong place. The truth will find you if you're looking for it. But looking for it is sometimes not going to come. Well, I shouldn't say sometimes, but very rarely ever going to come when you're actively trying to find it. No one's going to tell you to check your speed. That's on you. See, it doesn't matter how much wisdom somebody gives you. It's on you to apply it. It's on you to use it. It's on you to articulate that wisdom and apply it. And that sometimes comes at the wrong time when you're on your knees with your hands together praying to God, help me make it through this. That's why I do what I do. I mean, that's why I teach. That's why I give most everything I do away for free. That's why I created Private Money Club. I understand how all this works now. It's taken me 47 years. I like to think I learned sooner than a lot of people, but later than some. Hopefully later than you. That's why I share the infinite banking concepts. I share my journeys, my stories, because that's wisdom, because that's real wisdom. It's the real wisdom that shortens the learning curve for you. You see, I'm an experimenter, like I said. I'm a trailblazer. I test, I push, I try things other people won't. And I'm an implementer. I take action. I build, I learn, I create. I am a teacher, but I was once a student. But the student becomes the teacher. Because what's the point of all this experience if you can't pass it on? Seriously, what would I do if I had all this knowledge and I didn't share it? I would be a selfish son of a bitch. But now it's up to you. It is up to you, but you don't have to go about it alone. Taking unnecessary risks, not checking the landing, going too fast, going too slow. You need to seek out the wisdom in whatever it is you're trying to do. I may not be the person for you. My teachings may not be the right things for you, but they're there when you're ready for them. Surround yourself with people who have been where you want to go. That's some of the best advice I can give you. That's the shortcut to success. If you surround yourself around the people who have already been where you're trying to go, you will get there a lot faster. But if you surround yourself around people that are just keeping you stuck where you are, who are those people? The people closest to you. Oftentimes your parents, oftentimes your closest friends, oftentimes the people who you think care about you the most. And maybe they do, but maybe those exact people are the ones who are holding you back from greatness, holding you back from where you want to be. Listen, the choice is yours. But as someone who has both soared and someone who has crashed, I can tell you this. Wisdom wins every single time. So doesn't it make sense to find a shortcut? Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being a listener of this podcast. And thanks for 7 great years and 300 episodes. We'll see you on the next episode. 301.